And there's a pathway for semi to actually end up being cheaper than rail. And if we can get to that point, that is just massively positive for the economy.
This is a topic that a number of people have been waiting for. Why is it that insiders are not buying Tesla stock? In fact, Tesla Q would point to the fact that why would you buy the stock if the board members are actually insiders are selling like crazy? And of course, every time they say that, we point out that the reasons they sell it is because they just got offered stock options, matures, they then want to have enough to pay the tax on that, or it's a pre-planned kind of thing. Like every first of day of the quarter, they sell automatically. But this is good news, right? This is an insider, Tesla board member, buying stock. He purchased 1.02 million of stock, the first time an insider has purchased it in 5 years, since 2000. So this came out yesterday. Joseph Gebbia, he's the co-founder of Airbnb. He bought, looks like 4,000 at $256. Some people will come out and say, yeah, great, but it's nothing. It's like $1 million. This guy's worth billions of dollars. What's your position on this?
Well, I think that you always have to look at the fundamentals when you're evaluating whether insider buying or selling is material to your thesis or not. And for the most part, insider buying or selling in Tesla is not a key piece of information that I look at to decide, should I purchase Tesla or not? But that's for me because I'm a long-term investor and my time horizon is out 5 to 10 years at least. And over that time period, I'm not usually trying to buy and sell and time the markets. So that is a signal that usually is something that is more associated with people who are trying to time those. And they're trying to gauge the sentiment of the executive ranks of the company on, is this a good time to buy or is this a good time to sell? The fact that it is the first buy by a significant executive in 5 years, though, I do feel like is a significant thing that, for the entire, any of the board members, any of the executives not to be buying over that period of time hasn't been good for the stock. It certainly hasn't been good for the sentiment of the retail investor base. And, we've seen that stock has pretty much traded sideways to down over most of that time period. So while, like I said, I don't usually put a whole lot of weight into the buying and selling, I do think that the unique nature of the first buy in that 5 years is kind of a big deal. But then, like you said, that's just $1 million on a $7 billion net worth. That is, less than 1% of his, significantly less than 1% of his assets. And so it is hard to feel like that is a meaningful move on his part. So I think people are going to read into this differently. And the things that I look at a lot more closely are decisions by capital allocators like Brad Gerstner to significantly sell down his Uber position and buy Tesla, which he has since, I think, sold just because of market uncertainty. He's reduced all of his exposure to the public markets. But those types of, and even that move to reduce his exposure to public markets during this time of uncertainty, I think that's probably a higher signal to noise ratio thing to look at than insider selling.
Yeah, I share everything you just said there. It is interesting. Why is he doing this? So first of all, he's a board member. He's getting shares, so he doesn't need to buy it. It's a small amount comparatively to what he's got. So what's the point? But then the other side is like, yeah, why? If it's nothing, why do it?
Yeah,
but
exactly.
So it's still something. So that's great. Even if it's for signaling to others, because like board members need to buy because this is the biggest complaint that Tesla Q has. Let's stop it. So maybe that's just okay. I'll throw in $1 million. But yeah, like you said, we can't really read too much into it. What matters are the people who hold billions of dollars and still holding, like Ron Barron. Kathy
Yep.
Wood and others, that's what you look at. Those are signal. Otherwise, and then the rest is whether or not Tesla's
Yeah.
progressing, and all
Does
that's
the
good.
technology work? Are they executing on the business model over time? Those are the big questions. And the only other thing I would say on insider buying is to see if this does become a trend. I think if you start to see other executives and board members buying more regularly, then maybe the accumulation of a number of those signals is significant as well.
Yeah. So the other argument that Tesla Q has, and I just read this very recently, where one guy said one of the reasons why I decided to sell Tesla is because Tesla doesn't have a purpose, doesn't have a mission anymore. All right, because initially it was sustainable energy, and so people bought Tesla because they wanted to support the mission. And now they don't know what it is, but it's sustainable abundance, which is even bigger of a mission than sustainable. It incorporates sustainable
I mean,
energy
even if it's
inside
just
abundance.
sustainable energy, that we still got a long ways to go
Well,
before that transition is complete.
yeah,
So I don't understand this. There's not a purpose
right. I do not
idea.
agree understand too, but that's the other argument. And so Tesla dropped the video just recently, and it's about the Tesla Semi. So they're basically saying, right, just reminding everybody that the Tesla Semi, we know that, right? So what is it? Semi contributes, or long range truck delivery contributes what, 15% to global warming, right? That's like a big issue, right? So
Yeah,
this
it's a
won't.
lot of the total emissions by vehicles. The semis make up, a couple of percent of the
Mhm.
overall vehicles in the global fleet, but they make up like an order of magnitude more than that of emissions. And it's because
Emissions.
they're
Yeah.
heavier and also because they drive a lot more. So the combination of the amount of usage that they get and the weight that they're carrying is what drives those much higher emissions.
Yep. And so for Tesla to, get Semi up and going, it was certainly delayed, but here we are. The factory is built. They need to now, put equipment inside of it, but they have planned to produce its first units this year and 50,000 units per year next year. 2026 is what he had said. Let's listen into the progress. And the Tesla Semi is important for the mission, more so than Tesla's, revenue and what it does for the company. But
I'm Dan Priestley, and I lead the Semi program here at Tesla. Welcome to the inside of the Semi factory up here on the Gigafactory Nevada campus. We've been spending the last several months constructing this building, mostly with the walls, all of the pillars and columns that you see behind me, laying concrete, putting the roof on, and now it's time to populate the building. This factory is designed with an annual capacity of 50,000 units a year. So over the next several quarters, we're going to be industrializing this factory, installing the equipment, and preparing for high volume production. First units are set to be on the line by the end of this year, and we'll be ramping the factory throughout 2026. The Tesla Semi is designed to be directly swapped in for diesel trucks without having to compromise. This is an instrumental product in helping advance Tesla's mission. There's a lot of exciting stuff coming through the next year, not just here in the factory, but also on the product itself. Over the last few years, our pilot semis have been out in the world, operating in fleets such as Tesla's own internal operations, showcasing electric trucking is ready for scale.
that's a new logo.
Pretty
Yeah.
cool.
So yeah. So I mean, they've been testing it out. It's been very successful in terms of the test, as far as we know, because it looks like that the demand is there. They're willing to build a factory of 50,000 units, despite the potential for a recession and so forth. They're building down. It was certainly delayed, but it's out there, right? So there's these sightings everywhere. Not only Pepsi, but also Tesla themselves. So this is Semi being used in UC Davis here. So, yeah.
I think, it's easy to underestimate the significance of Tesla producing 50,000 of these things a year, because we all know that the Semi uses a lot more batteries than even a Cybertruck, a Model S, especially a lot in comparison to something like humanoid robotics. But there's more to it than just the battery that the vehicle has. that in order to deploy the mega charging infrastructure that's needed for these trucks to really be able to operate in all of the different routes that they need to operate on, you also need mega packs. And so the demand for lithium ion batteries that is created by producing a fleet of 50,000 Tesla semis a year is immense. And so it's a big signal to us for Tesla to actually move forward with these plans, because it does indicate that they have confidence in their ability not only to ramp semi production and the batteries necessary for semi production, but to continue to soak up mega pack production for that mega charger infrastructure as well. And there is a possibility, of course, that that could bite them in the butt, and that, as you know, we are in this time with a lot of geopolitical uncertainty and supply chain challenges related to some critical components, and China really does have this stranglehold on lithium refining still. That, you know, it's not impossible that these plans to produce semi at scale do get slowed down by that, but I think it is a great sign that Tesla thinks that they can work through all those, and they're ready to go ahead and launch this production now. And I think that that's one of the reasons that we've had these delays, is because contingency plans had to be worked out. You know, that's why we needed to get the refining facility in Corpus Christi going. And I'm sure that there's a lot of things that we haven't heard about that are basically trying to make the supply chain for all of the battery raw materials more resilient, so that they, and you know, not only those raw materials, but then production of the 4680 batteries, both dry anode and cathode, like all of those things really have to get fully ironed out so that they can have the confidence to move forward on this. So I'm really excited for what the implications there mean, but I'm also really excited for the semi as a product. It's going to be such an incredibly important piece of infrastructure in the next century, because you know, it is just a much better truck than a standard diesel truck. It can go up and down hills better. The safety features that it's going to have with autonomous, the ability to do platooning at the very least, if not fully autonomous trucking, the types of freight transport costs that we can reduce with Tesla semis is going to be intense. And, you know, I don't think people realize how much all of the things that they buy every day get moved around from place to place by trucks, and how having, or even, you know, reducing by 25% the cost of that transportation has a very positive impact on pricing of all goods and services in the United States, and then globally. And there's a pathway for semi to actually end up being cheaper than rail. And if we can get to that point, that is just massively positive for the economy.
Yeah. Very good point. So that's it. That's it right there, right? Why is Tesla investing in Tesla Semi? Well, if you have robo trucking and you can get the cost per mile to be lower than, you know, rail. I think Elon one time said that. That's where things change. Okay, yes, it's going to have tremendous impact. It already will have tremendous impact to economies of states and governments, companies that are manufacturing here in the US. Huge, huge impacts. It's like the number one impact. But then once it gets to cost per mile lower than freight, lower than shipping, lower than even, you know, short haul flights, that's where things get very, very exciting. And I think that that's where they're going to get to. Is it worth it though? Because if Tesla's going to do this, it shows me that they must not be battery constrained, because that was the concern. That is the concern. But for them to go forward and say, hey, we're continuing building this factory. We're going to have, and they announce we're going to have 50,000 units per year run rate next year. That's a lot of batteries. Here's how CERN Basher compared that. 50,000 semis, that's equivalent to 20 million Optimus bots. So if you're doing 50,000 semis per year, that's 20 million bots per year that you could have used those batteries for. 50,000 times 900-ish kilowatt hour battery pack in a semi versus a 2.3 kilowatt hour battery pack in a bot.
Yeah. I mean, that's those are big numbers, and obviously the Tesla Optimus has a lot of also very important applications in the economy that can be hugely positive. And so,
Bigger,
you know,
yeah.
that's, I think on the one hand it does show the tension, and that maybe as we de-risk the Optimus project, we might decide that, hey, you know what, it actually is a better use of our scarce resources to allocate batteries to Optimus over Semi. That's not an impossible future scenario. What it
Hmm.
probably means is that Optimus functionality is proceeding faster than expected, which would be a very pleasant surprise, I think, for everyone. But the other way to look at this is just, wow, you know, Tesla's ability to take batteries and turn them into extremely valuable
Hmm.
products
Yeah.
is unparalleled. And so, you know, it's a very high class problem to have to decide whether or not you're going
Mm-hmm.
to make a bunch of money putting batteries in semis, or a bunch more money over here in Tesla
Or
Optimus,
mega packs,
or
or
yeah, or, you know,
autonomous
the list
cars,
goes on.
or yeah, yeah.